Welcome to the Audit Committee meeting, our semi-annual meeting. Today, we do not have Al, but Beryl and Kent are here and me, so we have a quorum. Sarah, you don't need to read the roll because I just did.
You just did. We're set.
I want to move to the agenda first of all. Behind tab 2 are the minutes from the last Audit Committee meeting. I hope folks had a chance to review them. Does anyone have any comments on them? If not,
I move approval.
we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. They're approved. We also have behind the next two tabs are two charters. The first is the Audit Committee charter, and the second one is the Internal Audit charter. We have recommended no changes to either. Does anyone have any concerns or comments on the Audit Committee charter? Okay. If not, can we accept the charter as is?
So moved.
Ken says yes. Beryl, second. Okay. And moving to the Internal Audit Committee charter. Again, no changes. I hope you have had a chance to review it. Does anyone have any concerns or comments? And if not, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll move.
Right,
Moved by Beryl.
Beryl moved and Ken second. All in favor? Aye. Beautiful. Moving through this agenda. The next thing we want to do is we want to bring our partners, our audit partners on board, Jeff Koch and Jake Day, and you're going to go through the audit plan for the 2026.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Good morning. We do have the plan available to be shared. I don't know if that could be enabled, or do we want to put the plan up?
Were you going to share it, Jake, or would you like
I
us
don't
to?
have the ability to share right here. If you can
Okay.
give me access to that, I can share.
Oh, I gotta make him a presenter. Okay, hold on.
One moment, and we'll let you control your slides so you can control the tempo at which you go through them.
Teams. Just, let's see. Keep your eyes peeled.
You should be able to now.
You can turn your camera on, or if you need it, share your screen.
I also believe these are in our packet.
They are.
They are.
We
They
can
are.
start as Jake gets that up there.
Okay.
So,
So if you want to start paging through, we'll get it up.
as Joan mentioned, I'm joined by Jake Day. He will be taking over this year as the audit manager, as Ryan's going to be out of office during most of the audit this year, who many of you have worked for in the past. We're also joined on my far right here by Marie Zimmerman. Many of you know her. She is our engagement quality control review partner, but also the managing partner for KPMG Albany office downstairs. So she's the account exec to make sure that the quality is being performed appropriately and all your needs are being satisfied as we perform our work. On slide 2 is just the key things that we'll be talking about today. Most of this is very consistent with what we've delivered in the past. We're going to be talking about the scope of the audit, our basic required communications, and the key risk in our overall audit plan that we plan to perform for the coming year. Just moving over to the next slide is our overall audit engagement team. I alluded to some of the team members that will be returning, but this is a completely returning engagement team this year. Ryan, like I said, has been moved out. Jake was the senior last year. He was promoted and moved up to manager this coming year. Caroline worked underneath him last year as an associate. She's now a senior associate and will be leading that charge. And our partners with Long Island Financial Management Services and Team Avaloria, the MWBE and WBE firms we utilize, will have their key team members returning as well too. Moving on to the next slide. This is just kind of a slide of how we perform our work and how we create value from an audit. Sometimes audits are viewed as commodities. We view that as something that's important to the committee and providing great insights and depth. We basically take data and critical thinking, and we continue to find ways to refine technology into our audit tools to provide better overall audit results, which gives you more insights into the overall operations of DASNY, as well as providing more high-level quality audit results that you can rely upon from that standpoint. Going to move on to the next slide, which is our scope of the audit work. And this is, consistent with last year, except for there is some items that are a little different. And this is specifically the system conversion that DASNY has been going through over the last couple of years, migrating from the JD Edwards system to the Microsoft Dynamics 365 platform. There's an anticipated conversion of that occurring here in February of 2026. And so we've updated our audit plan to talk about what we will be doing associated to that as we kind of look at the conversion and how we're going to kind of involve ourselves to make sure that we do have that comfort that the conversion goes smoothly as possible. We know it's a long process and a challenging uplift to kind of make that type of migration. And we want to make sure that we're working shoulder to shoulder a little bit with management in that standpoint to make sure that there's a smooth ability to rely upon the new system once implemented. Moving along, we're going to go into our basic required communications. You can go to the next slide there. A lot of this is just kind of a summary of the overall engagement. Our audit of the basic financial statements will be for the March 31, 2026 financial statement period, and it will be performed in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America, as well as the standards applicable to financial statement audits contained in the government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. We'll perform the audit of the financial statements with the consideration of internal audit, internal control over financial reporting, as a basis for designing those audit procedures, but not for the purpose of expressing the opinion. However, as we do go through the audit required by GAS, we do have the yellow book opinion that we do issue, which is any matters we do identify that would be considered significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. We will also be performing an audit, which will include the examination of DASNY's compliance with the requirements of Part 201.3 of Title II of the official compilation of code, rules, and regulations of the state of New York. And lastly, later on in the summer, we'll issue the individual DASNY bond financial statements, which there are about 6 of them that we're down to now at this point in time. And I remember the days that there used to be 50 of those things. So that's been significant progress, obviously, with those. The next slide is just kind of a summarization slide for you about materiality in the context of an audit. It talks about what we consider when we're developing materiality. I think the most important point here on the slide is in the upper right-hand corner, which is that the judgment of materiality involves both qualitative and quantitative factors. So we don't only just look at the number of DASNY, we look at who the users of financial statements are, as well as many other elements that could impact the need to adjust that materiality from a higher or lower percentage of the overall benchmarks that would be applied. The next slide is our overall timeline. This again has remained relatively consistent with what we've delivered in the past. We'll begin our planning and risk assessment processes here in January. This is where we kind of line up who will be assisting us on the audit and the involvement of others. Again, where this might be changed a little bit is we'll be working with management as they go through their system conversion, making sure that we're understanding how the process is going and what other elements they may have to make sure we're providing to get the right audit quality that we'll need for that process. In the February-March timeframe, that's where we'll continue our interim work, going through the final risk assessment procedures, starting to evaluate some of our substantive procedures, and getting ready for the year-end audit work. That year-end audit work will commence in the April to June timeframe. That's when we'll perform the remaining control test work we may need to perform, as well as the substantive procedures, sending out the various confirmations and other items like that. And then finally getting together with you all to deliver the final audit results based upon this year's audit. And then lastly, in the July to September timeframe, we'll complete the substantive audit procedures over those DASNY individual financial statements. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jake, who's going to take us through the key audit areas that we plan on focusing for this year's audit. Jake?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff. So as Jeff mentioned, we just want to go through some key areas of audit focus just to provide you guys as the audit committee with some color over the procedures that we'll be carrying out as we conduct our audit this year. Overall, there really have been no significant changes to the scope of the audit this year, so it'll be very much in line with what we've historically done. Jumping into cash and investments, we'll perform 100% confirmation over those state cash and investment balances, as well as those that are presented on the individual financial statements. In doing this, as with all of our confirmation procedures, we'll plan to largely do this through the use of confirmation.com in conjunction with management. Beyond those confirmation procedures, we'll also perform price testing through KPMG's National Pricing Desk, which performs independent valuation procedures over those same securities that we'll be confirming. By doing this, we gain a very robust level of audit evidence over the valuation of DASNY's investment portfolio, as that pricing desk gathers pricing data from a number of independent sources and ensures that all those data points are converging around DASNY's valuation of their investments. For leases and loans receivable, we'll obtain a roll forward of the year's activity and target our testing around some key components of that activity, those being debt repayments, construction fund disbursements, and construction fund income on investments. For bonds and notes outstanding, very similar to cash and investments, we'll confirm 100% of the state bonds and notes outstanding, as well as those associated with those individual financial statements. In addition to that, we'll also take a statistical sample of the conduit debt population and perform confirmation procedures there as well. For the OPEB, if we can go to the next slide, sorry.
While you're switching to the next slide, the 100% confirmation is above and beyond our normal AICPA required procedures or our KPMG audit methodology. And that's been a request of the board that we'll continue to support, just for those that may be new and didn't know the history of that.
For the OPEB liabilities, in addition to the confirmation that we'll send to DASNY's engaged actuary that prepares the actuarial report, will also involve our own KPMG actuarial specialist to help the engagement team to assess and understand those key assumptions that go into the OPEB obligation calculation of DASNY. Beyond that, we will also use one of KPMG's advanced data analysis tools known as the Compare Engine to identify changes in the census populations to allow us as an engagement team to focus our testing in on those individuals that are either new or had changes during the year, to allow us to focus our testing on individuals that might present a greater risk of error in that they have those changes. For the leases in SBITA, those standards have been in place for a couple of years now, so our procedures there will revolve largely around obtaining that roll forward and performing an assessment of the activity during the year. And on an as needed basis, we'll obtain any new lease agreements or any of those new subscription-based IT agreements. And lastly, the involvement of our IT specialist. I know Jeff touched on this briefly earlier, but it will be increased this year in light of DASNY's transition from JD Edwards to Microsoft Dynamics 365. So in addition to the usual cybersecurity risk assessments and those considerations around the impact on the financial statements, they'll also be performing inquiries and doing control assessments around program authorization, functional testing, data conversion and validation, as well as cutover planning and authorization to go live. That was what we wanted to cover in terms of.
I have a question. So the transition from JD Edwards to Microsoft Dynamics is pretty significant for the agency. Will you be doing testing of both systems to ensure that the information is carried over or it's accurate? And will the audit be based on the Microsoft Dynamics or JD Edwards? Kind of confusing to me because it is timing is everything in terms of the conversion.
Yeah, so we've had some meetings preliminarily with the finance folks and about the system and the plan of the migration and some of those discussions. It's going to be a little bit of both systems we'll be relying on this year. For information up until that cutover point, we will be relying on the information that's going to be coming out of the JD Edwards system, which is the legacy system and the same controls that'll be in place. So we'll be performing some procedures over those activities that have been recorded through that system up until that point.
Okay.
From the point of conversion through year end, we'll be using the Microsoft 365 system and performing testing over that transactional detail out of that system. Additionally, because you're having this cutover, a key component of what our testing could be for the audit to be able to get that comfort to rely on the balances that are in the new system is testing that point of the cutover and the controls that management's had in place to convert that data over into the new system to make sure that there's a smooth transition of information and that we can kind of rely on both systems throughout the audit period.
Okay.
The next slide we'll be talking about will be another area where that kind of comes up because, again, we do have a significant risk, which is the management override of controls. And that's a risk we have for every organization, just we're managed in a unique position. Under the historical system with JD Edwards, there were more of a manual-based approach to controls associated to that, where with the transactions and the review process. With a new system in the modernization, there's going to be more of a workflow review. So there'll be more reliance on what's happening through the system. And that's where it becomes more key that we're getting our IT professionals involved to not only understand the controls that management is utilizing, but those underlying general IT controls, those controls that are associated with program access, associated with any changes that are being made to the systems, and other types of controls to make sure that the underlying system doesn't have a flaw in it that could cause those IT controls that management use, the application controls, to be unreliable.
Okay, interesting.
Any other questions on that before we continue along? Okay. So as mentioned, we do identify significant risks as we do go through the audit process. Management override of controls is one of those, and it's, again, not unique to DASNY. It's just that unique position that management is in where they could manipulate financial records. As part of our audit response, we obtain an understanding of the financial reporting and journal entry controls in place. And again, that's going to be pre and post system conversion. We do get a listing of all journal entries that are posted through the system for the fiscal year. And we do do prove the completeness of that population by doing a roll forward of that activity. We then select transactions that we would consider to be the higher risk transactions, things that are being posted more manually by management after year end, things throughout the year that just aren't normal, that have uniqueness to the types of transactions. And we'll examine those journal entries to kind of make sure they had the right documentation to support the balances and the overall approvals that went through the process, whether it's pre or post system implementation. We do always incorporate an element of unpredictability as we go through this process. So there are some other transactions we do select just to make sure that the right documentation is maintained for journal entries, and that there is the right approvals related to the transactions. The next slide, we talk about a little bit about the involvement of others. Internal audit will be utilized again for this coming year's audit. We plan to utilize 160 hours of assistance from DASNY's internal audit department. Usually we vary up the procedures that are performed to keep that element of unpredictability, but we plan on having them involved in our purchases and sales of investments test work, the monthly reconciliation processes for the investments, and some of the cash receipt and disbursement test work associated to the interest on bonds, principal repayments, and financing income that relate to those individual financial statements that we issue later on in the year. The next person we do involve, we do have an in-house actuarial specialist that we do involve, and we do get them involved to take a review of the OPEB liability that's recorded on an annual basis, look at the key underlying assumptions that are being utilized, and make sure that those assumptions are reasonable, properly supported, and consistent with what the markets are seeing associated with those.
KPMG has an actuary.
KPMG has an actuary in-house. Yep. And if you go back on our team slide, we actually have the individual identified. His name's Alex Smith. He's been on the engagement for a few years. Lastly, we talked a little bit about this already, but again, we'll have our technology assurance professionals involved, and they'll be utilized in gaining an understanding of not only cybersecurity risks associated with the audit, but also with the system conversion that we've been talking about. As it relates to cybersecurity on the next slide, our audit responsibilities is listed over here on the right. When we do the audit work associated with cybersecurity, we're looking at more of if something were to happen or the risk of a material misstatement resulting from unauthorized access to your system, determine whether there's a potential fraud risk associated with that, as well as if a cybersecurity incident were to occur, evaluate that and its effects on the overall audit plan, and may need to adjust the audit plan if something like that were to happen throughout the fiscal year. Moving along to the next slide. This slide is a little empty, which is unique for the last couple of years. I think DASNY is caught up with all the GASB pronouncements at this point in time. There are no new pronouncements that will be going into effect for this year. GASB 102 will have been the one, but DASNY early implemented that one last year. So a nice clean year, given everything they're going through, I think is definitely well-deserved associated to that. In the coming year, there will be a couple new pronouncements, GASB 103, which is financial reporting model improvements, and that's trying to align the financial statements for a lot of proprietary type funds or BTA type funds to be more consistent so they can be more comparable across various entities. That could have a higher impact for DASNY as far as that goes. I know management will be looking into that one as the time goes along, and we'll work with them as they kind of implement that. The other one is GASB 104, which is disclosure of certain capital assets. That's anticipated to have a very low to no impact associated to DASNY. Our next slide, on the remaining side, there's a little bit more informational stuff. This one talks about independence and how independence is a shared responsibility. Audit independence is more effective when both management, those charged with governance, and KPMG work together to consider the various impacts that independence could have. KPMG maintains a system of independent quality control. We are always constantly looking at new officers, if any is appointed to the entities or new affiliates, to ensure that we maintain our independence, as well as any certain relationships KPMG employees and team members may have associated to DASNY, to make sure that before they become part of the team, that there would be no sort of perceived value of independence concern. The next slide just talks about our U.S. quality, transparency, and impact reports. In the slide deck that was shared, these links are active to those reports. They provide some key insights into some of our quality metrics, as well as our investments to the audit approach, people, and technology, and they're available for read if anyone chooses. The next slide is just about responsibilities. These have remained relatively consistent over the last few years. It talks about what management's responsibilities are versus KPMG's responsibilities. KPMG is responsible for providing the overall audit opinion and obtaining the audit evidence. Management's responsible for the overall financial statements. And the other key thing to note here is that the audit of the financial statements doesn't relieve management or those charged with governance of their duty associated to the financial statements. The last slide is just kind of more of a memory jogger. As we go through the audit, we are required to perform certain inquiries of various members of the DASNY management, as well as the audit committee and board. These are just some of the key questions we would talk about. If any of these do trip something on someone's mind, we're happy to talk about them. Don't hesitate to get a hold of us, and we'd be happy to talk more about them with you as far as that goes. It just does form part of our overall audit approach. That concludes what we had prepared for this morning. We'll open it up if there are any other questions.
Any board member have any other questions of KPMG? Apparently not. Good job. Here we go.
Here we go.
Keep us on schedule. That's what's important.
Yep.
And the one thing I seem to recall, KPMG reached out to the audit committee members last year. You said if we had any questions to contact you, but for the audit committee, expect a call. Just a couple of questions. Okay, great. New York, do you have any comments, questions? Janice?
No, I think both you and KPMG do an excellent job, so thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and we look forward to updates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you guys are excused.
No.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you guys.
Yes.
And now I want to turn this over to Jenna Clinton. Jenna's gonna do an overview on the internal audit plan. And Jenna?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. I'm excited to give you an update on the progress that we've made over the last couple of months on our audit plan. With me today, I have Gia Wu. She's one of our senior internal auditors here at DASNY, and she's going to present on one of her most recently completed audits in just a few minutes. Before I get into the committee materials that I shared with the members, I do just want to start off with some required communications. The Internal Audit Department Charter, as well as the Global Internal Audit Standards, require that certain communications be made to the Audit Committee on an annual basis. And those include information of the Internal Audit Department's organizational independence, our conformance with the Global Internal Audit Standards, as well as our purpose, authority, and responsibility of the department. Annually, our internal audit team members, they complete an independence and objectivity statement, and they affirm to the best of their knowledge whether they are aware of any potential threats that might impair their independence. And they also acknowledge that if they do encounter any potential impairments, that they will report those if and when they occur. I'd like to note that there have been no impairments to date. The Internal Audit Department's purpose, authority, and responsibility is outlined in the Internal Audit Department Charter. But briefly, our purpose is to provide objective and independent assurance in order to add value and improve DASNY's operations. And also to comply with Public Authority Law Title 8, Section 9, which says the Internal Audit Department function shall evaluate the authority's internal controls and operations, identify any internal control weaknesses, and make recommendations to correct those weaknesses. Are there any questions before I get into the materials? Starting on page 2, the key highlights, I just want to recognize the internal audit team. The work that I'm presenting today is their work, and it's their dedication and efforts over the last couple months. We are a team of 5, and collectively we have about 32 years of DASNY service together. I provided an audit staff profile within your materials, but recently I received feedback on the team members, and it was praising their commitment to helping others within the organization and supporting, even when it didn't necessarily benefit their work. So that speaks to, in my opinion, their dedication to DASNY and their character and commitment. So I wanted to highlight that.
Jen, I just want to reflect on what you just said. Jen and I have numerous conversations, and one of the things that impresses me about you and your organization is that you have the agency's best interest at hand, and you're professional about it. And so I just want to give you kudos for that, because it's been very impressive working with you.
Thank you, Joan.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that.
Can I also ask you, it seems like we are at full staffing. Are we, or are you still looking to increase it?
Right now, we have 5 audit team members, and that has been about the amount that we've had for the past couple years. One of the items that came out of our quality assurance external report was that there may be a need for some more IT experience, but collectively we are trying to train in-house, and we do have we've been provided the funds that if we do outsource our IT audit engagements, we have the availability to do that. So as of right now, we are we have a good team size right now, yes.
Terrific.
Well, continuing on with our audit plan progress, as you can see from the materials, we have several completed, a number that are actively underway, as well as the remaining that will be scheduled in the next couple months. I've also included here our audit average cycle time. We track the time that it takes to complete an audit from start to finish, and this really helps us to address any delays or efficiency opportunities in our process. I'm happy to report that since last year, we've improved our cycle time by a little over 2 weeks, or 14%. So that's something we've been continually focusing on. As part of our quality assurance and improvement program review this year, we did not have any concerns with the results. We did an internal assessment and reviewed our performance with the global internal audit standards, specifically around domain 1 and 2. Key highlights from that assessment are included on page 4, and I'll walk through that with you in just a few moments. Moving on to page 3, this is details of our audit plan status and the progress that we've made. We have completed 10 audit engagements to date, including 3 construction project audits, a handful of annual audits, as well as 2 business process area audits. We have 5 audits that are currently underway in various stages of field work and reporting. And we have 6 that have not yet started that are planned for the next couple months. And those include in the area of IT, grants, as well as a follow-up audit. In addition, I would like to propose, in addition to the audit plan, we will review the audit plan to ensure that our work continues to align with DASNY's priorities and strategic objectives. So we will reassess it for things like emerging risks, as well as, in this case, management requests. At this time, I'd like to request to go into executive session. Joan?
I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the financial and credit history of particular corporations, proposed, pending, or current litigation, and the employment histories of particular persons with matters leading to the employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of particular person. I have a motion from Kent. Could I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Beryl. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Sarah, can we move into executive session?
Yes. Like to go and answer. There we go. Back.
I'd like to note that we just concluded an executive session and that no action was taken in the executive session other than to return to public session. We have one motion that I want to pose to the audit committee. Jenna went through the audit plan and made one revision to the audit plan and explained it to us. So I'd like a motion to approve the revised audit plan. Kent, Farrell, second, all in favor? Great, that will not require a resolution. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll move.
Oh, let me give to Bill this time. Second, Kent, all in favor? Aye.